Hi, welcome back to the channel and my review for The Monkey. So this is a new comedy horror film from Osgood Perkins, a director probably a lot of you horror fans will be very familiar with after last year's Longlegs. That was a horror film that I thought worked really well, had a very distinct style about it, some really effective moments, and I've definitely been excited to see what this director is going to do next. And I did manage to see a teaser trailer for this film sometime last year, where it was just that shot of Theo James covered in blood looking at this toy monkey, and that was all we got, but it was enough to definitely get me intrigued about what this thing was going to be. But tonight I went out to a secret horror screener, something I've never done before, and it ended up being for The Monkey. So you're getting this review from me a few days early before it's released theatrically this Friday. So this is actually based on a short story by Stephen King, and I definitely think that will become apparent to you once you get into the plot of this film, because, you know, with Stephen King stories, he does like to kind of delve into characters that are emotionally troubled because of a traumatic past, storylines like that, and you have those character arcs playing out alongside a horror story. So once you know that it's a Stephen King story, you'll definitely see it will feel familiar to you in some ways, in a good way, I think, because, you know, Stephen King is very distinct and has a specific style with the type of stories that he likes to tell. So that's definitely evident here. But the plot for this one is following these two twin boys who end up finding a toy monkey in their father's old stash. He's no longer with the family anymore. He's walked out some years previously, and they're going through his old stuff. They come across this monkey, and whilst they're messing about with this thing, they start to find that it might in some way be connected to some kind of evil entity, because when they mess around with it, somebody around them ends up dying in the most unpredictable ways. One thing I really loved about this film was the blend of the comedy and the horror. And as I've said a number of times on the channel, comedy horror is a genre that doesn't always work for me. And it's mainly because I often feel like the two genres end up competing against each other and end up really pulling you out of the experience. You know, if it feels tonally inconsistent, I start to really notice that and it becomes distracting to me. Whereas here I do feel like this very weird and dark deadpan humour is well suited to the material, because when I was thinking about this movie afterwards, it's a very dark, twisted and depressing film, and I think the comedy adds into it nicely, where it just lightens the tension at certain moments so it doesn't feel like an overly bleak experience. And, you know, some of the really crazy moments that you don't see coming, they're the bits that end up being humorous, and just how the characters deal with the situation. That's what makes it funny. It's not one of those things where there's just really over-the-top one-liners or jokes or any slapstick comedy. It's nothing like that at all. It all fits really nicely with the tone of the film, I think. So in the first section of the film, you're effectively following the twins when they're younger, and you get to see all of the devastation that this evil entity and this monkey has caused to them and their family and all of the people around them. And that's kind of the stuff that leaves them with these traumas that kind of carry over into their adult lives. So the second half of the film is effectively following them years and years into the future, and you see some of the effects and the damage that this has done to their lives after their kind of really troubled childhoods. And it was interesting to see, actually, because you end up following the story from the perspective of the brother that's the more awkward and quieter one, and it's played by Theo James. And I thought that was interesting casting, because he's not usually one to play these type of characters, so I wasn't sure about that initially, but I thought he did a really nice job with it. Then you find out later on that he is also playing the twin brother as well, who is the complete opposite to him. He's the really over-the-top, aggressive one and really impulsive with his actions. And I think he does a really nice job at kind of blending these two characters when they're interacting with each other, especially towards the end. They've got a really great dynamic. And I think afterwards, even though I was kind of slightly questioning that casting at first, I like the way they managed to pull that off here. And one thing that did surprise me is towards the end, there are some quite touching moments as well, like when these, I won't spoil anything that happens here, but there's certain scenes and conclusions that come between this kind of family dynamic that will get to you, I think. And as I say, with Stephen King's stories, these are things that he likes to tackle into people who are troubled, who have a lot of issues and take it out in very destructive ways in their lives, but hopefully will eventually find ways to reconcile some of these things with their friends, their family. And I think that's effectively what Theo James does a really nice job with here, where even though these characters are a little bit quirky and strange and have gone to some dark places in their life, there is that emotional side where you do find there's ways to connect with them and to kind of understand why they are the way they are as a result of kind of all the stuff they've been through in their past. I wouldn't say that everything in The Monkey works. There is a particular side plot in here involving a character who is played by the guy who plays Corey in Halloween Ends. So he shows up here in this side role, playing this guy who's basically obsessed with the toy monkey, and throughout the film he's kind of in the background trying to find a way to get this thing back from one of the twin brothers. And I found everything involving him really annoying and over the top and just way too much. And like I said, with some of the humour where it gets a little bit weird and quirky, there's a lot of that here with this character. And it's all just to set up this really over the top scene in the second half of the film. And as I say, it will work for some people. Some people will enjoy that. But at the end of the day, when I got to the end of the film, I thought, I'm not sure that character actually needed to be there at all. I thought it was just distracting from the main characters that we were focusing on. It was just there to have another really outrageous scene thrown in there, which this movie was certainly not short of. So there were certain moments like that that I felt like they were just going a bit too far, throwing too much in there to make this thing feel as crazy and as insane and over the top as they could. But some of it to me felt a little bit unnecessary, and everything involving that character was definitely some of it. I think people that like having their stories properly wrapped up and concluded in a satisfying way, where all of the events are, kind of clearly explained, so you understand why all of these events have occurred the way they have. You don't find that in this film. And I think that is typical of Stephen King stories that have been put to film, where often the focus is on the story of the characters, and that may be wrapped up well, but all of the horror that's kind of going on in the background, that's just kind of providing context for the character story. And you don't necessarily get to find out why all of this has happened, or the reason for why any of this exists the way it does. And that's very much the case here. So it will be different for different people. It didn't bother me so much, but I can imagine that being frustrating for some people walking out of this one. One last thing that I did find really fun about this movie was the insane amount of really crazy death scenes. And it is familiar of a film like Final Destination. You're probably going to hear that comparison made quite a lot, because it's this idea of kind of death following people, where this monkey is just a small toy monkey, so it's not directly killing anybody, but when the entity is activated, a weird set of coincidental circumstances will happen that leads directly to someone's death in a very insane way, which technically could be explained away by natural phenomena, even though it's completely over the top. And I really enjoyed a lot of these scenes. As I say, some of it will really take you by surprise. It's extremely crazy, extremely gory. And people that like that kind of stuff, if you like Final Destination and those really over-the-top moments where you're kind of wondering how the next person's going to be taken out, there's a load of that here to really enjoy. So guys, that is my review for The Monkey. I think this one was a lot of fun. It's another really good effort from Osgood Perkins. And if you are interested in his style, I highly recommend you check this one out. I don't think it's a perfect film, and I don't think it's going to work for everyone, but I do think it's going to be one of the more talked about horror films this year. So I'm going to give this one a 3.5 out of 5 rating, but please do let me know in the comments once you get to see The Monkey what you think of it, and let me know what yet is your favourite Osgood Perkins horror film. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. As always, I really do appreciate your time coming to see these videos, and once this review is up, I will be going back to finishing off my Nightmare on Elm Street series. Got the last few movies to go in that franchise, so if that's something that interests you, do subscribe to the channel and come back to join me for that soon. So anyway, do take care, and I'll see you next time.